This morning we're going to be talking about marriage. And as we've been going through the book of Proverbs, we've covered a lot of topics, a lot of ground, and we're getting close to the end. Next week we'll learn about the wife of noble character, how to be a godly woman. And then I'll wrap it up in 2 weeks on how to be a godly man. But we're going to talk this morning about marriage. And in my preparation this week, as I was just looking at various commentators and even secular writings, there's a couple things that got my attention of what some people wrote about marriage. One said that marriage is like twirling a baton, turning a handspring, or eating with chopsticks. It looks easy until you try it. Another person wrote that many girls marry men just like their fathers, which may explain why many mothers cry at weddings. And there was a counselor who mentioned one time he was counseling an older couple, and he asked the lady, they were struggling a little bit, and he just asked the lady if she had ever considered divorce. He said, "I hope not, but have you considered it?" And she said, "Oh no, I would never consider divorce, but I have considered murder many times." You know, as I read these things, I thought, well, this is not really what the Bible teaches about marriage. Obviously, this is what some secular people think about marriage. And just as you have conversation with people outside of the church, you often hear things like this, or you hear things, or you hear people discouraging others from getting married, or they might say, you need to date 7 or 10 years, or it's just better to be single because you can be free and you're not tied down and shackled, because marriage can really be a burden, is what many people in our society would say. But I'm here to tell you that that's not what God thinks about marriage. And what we'll find in Proverbs and throughout many scriptures this morning is that God considers marriage to be a blessing. And it is a gift from God. Our marriages are a gift from God, and they're not burdensome, and you're not shackled, but it really is indeed a blessing. And what we see here in Proverbs 18:22 is it describes how he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Love that passage. For those of you married in the room, you think about how the fact that you're married, it's a gift from the Lord, and you have obtained favor from the Lord. The word favor means blessing. It means that you're fortunate that God has given you your spouse. Husbands, you're fortunate for your wives, and wives, you're fortunate for your husbands. This is what Proverbs is saying. It's a good thing when you find a godly spouse. Proverbs 19:14 continues on this theme of it being a gift from the Lord, where house and wealth are inherited from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. A prudent wife, a godly wife, a woman who seeks godly wisdom, knows how to navigate the complexities of this world through a godly lens. That's what it means to be prudent. And it is a gift from the Lord when you find a prudent wife or a prudent husband. All of this is from the Lord. Our marriages are a gift and from the Lord, and we know that he is the one who joins husbands and wives together. Mark chapter 10, Jesus wrote, "But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let man not separate." What this is saying is God brought man and wife together. Man and wife together. Husband and wives together is what God has brought. So our marriage is gift from God and ordained by God. He's the one who makes it happen. So for those of you married in the room, when is the last time that you thought your spouse was a gift? When is the last time you actually thought about how your spouse was a blessing to you? What about this question? When's the last time you thought about God bringing you together? He's the one who orchestrated that to happen. When's the last time you actually thought about that? I'm looking around the room. Some of you have been married for 40, 50 years. I mean, really, dig deep. When's the last time you had these thoughts? This is what the Bible instructs us to remember, that God has given us this gift of marriage. And as I continue to study it this week, I went back to our Westminster Confession of Faith. It has a whole chapter that discusses marriage. And in chapter 24, section 2, it describes the benefits of marriage in this way. Marriage was ordained for the mutual help of husband and wife, for the increase of mankind with legitimate issue, and of the church with the holy seed, and for preventing of uncleanness. There are many benefits to marriage. The Westminster gives us 3 benefits to marriage. The first benefit it describes is that marriage is for our mutual help. If you remember back in the beginning of creation, God created the world. He created the first human being, Adam. But in Genesis 2, it says that it is not good that a man should be alone. And God said, I will make him a helper fit for him. Fit for him. The creation had not yet been complete because Eve was not here yet. Adam was alone in this garden with animals and with a beautiful creation. And God said everything was good, but it was not yet complete. So God created the grand finale. Ladies in the room, you're the grand finale of creation. The grand finale by creating Eve from Adam. And then he said everything was very good because Adam was no longer alone. He had a suitable helper that was fit for him. Mutual help. If you think about it, we all have issues. We all have struggles. We all have gaps. And when you get married, oftentimes that spouse will help fill the gaps. It was the great Rocky Balboa who said, I got gaps. She got gaps. Together we fill the gaps. You think about before you were married, all the gaps that you had and how your spouse hopefully has helped fill those gaps. I, for one, can remember I had 5 roommates in seminary, and our house was like a fraternity house, not very clean, pretty messy. Immediately after I got married, she whipped me into shape. That's one of many reasons of how my wife has helped fill the gaps. I could be here all day telling you the gaps I had that she's helped fill. What about you? Look back. How has your spouse helped you fill those gaps? Complement one another. Help each other. That's what marriage is designed to do, is to be for our mutual benefit. Ecclesiastes 4, another book of wisdom from the Bible that Solomon wrote, describes how 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 will withstand him. Although the context here is talking about a friend, you could also put this in the context of marriage, because 2 are better than 1. Is it Marvin Gaye who said, it takes 2, baby, me and you? Another great song says, just the 2 of us, we can make it. If we try, just the 2 of us, you and I. Just the 2 of us. Ecclesiastes 4 mentions 2 are better than 1. Why? Various reasons. It mentions how a good reward for your toil, how you work to multiply resources, not simply consume them. 2 people help multiply those resources. Another reason is if you fall, the other one is there to help lift you up. I know a lot of people, even today, who have to care for a sick spouse. That's hard. It's hard to do. But yet 2 are better than 1. If you are injured, if you're sick, the other is there to help lift you up. If 2 lie down together, they keep warm. Also, if you have 2, it helps you fight the enemy more. It helps you to protect yourself. It helps you to be safe and secure when you have 2 people. 2 are better than 1. And Proverbs speaks to this very thing. Proverbs 31, describing the wife of noble character, verse 11, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. What this is saying is this wife of noble character helped multiply those resources as opposed to simply consuming them. So beneficial to husband and wife is the spouse, right? It's a mutual benefit. It's for mutual help and gain. So I want you to think, for those of you married in the room, there are 3 ways that you relate to one another. 3 different ways. There is what I would call back to back, there's shoulder to shoulder, and there is face to face. When you're back to back, what that means is you've got each other's back, but you're doing different things. You might have 2 different jobs you're doing. You might be in different places. But while you're away from one another, do you have the other person's back? Do you talk negatively about your spouse to your family or to your friends, or do you honor them and talk positively about them? That's what it means to relate back to back. What about shoulder to shoulder? What that means is you're working together to accomplish a task. That might mean you're raising children together. That might mean you're doing home repairs together. That might mean you're working on the finances and the budget together. You're working shoulder to shoulder. You're helping one another do the tasks that help you every day. The third way is face to face, not just intimacy, but are you connecting with one another as friends? Are you sharing your dreams and your hopes and your struggles together? Are you connecting in that way? Are you looking at one another? Are you listening to each other? Are you hearing each other? Are you providing counsel to one another? So that's face to face. So if you think about your marriage, how are you connecting in these three ways? Do you have one another's back when you're back to back doing separate things? Are you supporting one another even when you're away from each other? Are you working with each other accomplishing tasks? Or are you just letting the other person do the job? It really does take two to get things done more efficiently. And so are you doing well working shoulder to shoulder? What about face to face? Are you spending that quality time you need with one another? Or are you just looking at each other like a glorified roommate? So how are you connecting? How are you relating to each other? And be reminded that one of the primary reasons of marriage is to help one another, to lift one another up. And you gotta do that in these three different scenarios. So marriage was given for our mutual well-being, but it's also given for parenting, for the increase of mankind is what the Westminster says. Genesis 1:28, God gave Adam and Eve, after he created them, the cultural mandate. He said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. What God was telling Adam and Eve after he created this world is he said, now you take care of it. I want you to cultivate this world and I want you to rule over it, have dominion over it, and I want you to multiply so that more and more people will help take care of what I've given you. But I want you to do it as you have children in the marriage context. So what we see here is that marriage benefits children and it benefits future generations because you want to raise a godly generation, a future heritage of faith. Children, my friends, are a blessing, just like marriage is. They are not burden. They are not a burden. A lot of our culture would say, you got to wait 10 years before you have children, or you got to have like maybe one child and you'll be good. What does Psalm 127 say about children? Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. My friends, children are gifts to us in the marriage context. And I have seen the positive effects when children are raised in a home with a mom and a dad. I've seen the devastating effects when they aren't. So keep that in mind with how marriage can play into raising the next generation. And it's our responsibility as parents to teach our children in the ways of the Lord so that when they get older, they won't depart from those ways. Proverbs 20 verse 7 says, the righteous who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. As you walk in integrity, as you seek to be righteous and follow Christ, your children are watching you. You're modeling to them how to live in holiness, and they're watching you, and they'll be blessed by that, and you'll be blessed by that as, Lord willing, one day they'll come to faith and they'll begin to follow the Lord. And if they have children, the generations of blessings will continue. So marriage all starts this, right? It starts in the marriage bed when you have children, then you raise them up in the Lord, and then it just continues on, generational blessings from the Lord. There are many people in this church who are single parents, and it's very hard. Whether a widow or whether a divorce, it's very, very hard to play both roles. This is where we as a church community need to rally around them. Not only does God love the family, but he loves the church family, and he calls us as a church family to help those who are in need. That's why we encourage you to serve in the nursery, to serve in the preschool, to serve in our youth ministry, to help parents help each other raise these children in the Lord. It starts with marriage. And it also starts in the church. So keep that in mind. 2 benefits of marriage we've talked about thus far. We've talked about how it's a mutual help for one another. We've also talked about how it's a place where you raise children, godly children. The third benefit the Westminster talks about is how it benefits us by preventing uncleanness. Proverbs talks a lot about lust. I'm not going to have a whole sermon on it, but I'm going to touch on it here and probably the final as we talk about godly man. Proverbs 5 through 7, if you just read through those three chapters, 5, 6, and 7, you're going to learn a lot about it. But in Proverbs 5, look at the context here, verse 15. Solomon the father is writing these words of wisdom to his son. And he says, drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be for yourself alone and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. As you continue reading on chapter 5, you also will read Song of Songs and you'll blush and you'll say, wow, this is a romantic novel here. But that's the Bible. This is what God has intended. Sex is a gift that God gives us in the marriage context, and it prevents uncleanness. And what Proverbs 5 is telling us here is to rejoice in the wife of your youth. Rejoice in the husband of your youth. Some of you have been married for 50 years here. It's hard for you to look back on your youth, but look back. Look back. Rejoice on who you married. Proverbs also instructs us that it's to be within the marriage context, intimacy is. It's not to be outside of the marriage bed. Hebrews 13:4 is very clear about keeping the marriage bed pure. And 1 Corinthians 7 also addresses how concerning the matters at which he wrote, it's good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. And it goes on to say, do not deprive each other of these rights. Again, a gift, a blessing God has given us within the marriage bed, and it keeps us from immorality. It's a blessing, a gift God has given. But so often we follow our flesh, and it leads us to wrong and to committing sin. Proverbs 2 instructs us to be careful about this. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. What is this saying here? It's saying be very, very careful. Be very, very careful with lust and avoid the immoral person. Proverbs, all of it was written from a father primarily to a son. There's a lot of women in here. Women, I just want you to think about this being written to you as well. So it's not just saying an adulterous woman. I also want you to think about an adulterous man, because they exist and they're all around. We have to avoid them, and we have to be mindful that they're out there, to be watchful of them and to guard ourselves, because it starts with the smooth words of flattery, and then it leads you to do things that you would have never thought you would do. So be very, very careful with who you are around. For men in the room, guard yourself from pornography. It is a major issue in our society, major. And it's destroying lives, it's destroying marriages, it's destroying churches. I'm thankful for we do have a men's group that meets weekly. We're probably gonna double that group and maybe have another one. I know there's gonna be a new one at Renew Clinic. This is a major issue in the digital world we're in. Parent your phone, guard your phone, set up guardrails, have accountability partners. Come talk to us if you need to join the group. This is why we're here. The church is here. It's a hospital for sinners. We're here to help. This is a safe haven, a place of refuge and protection. So come and be and tell us. We'll keep it confidential, but come and tell us so we can get you help. For women in the room, be mindful of it too. I know it can be a struggle for some of you. And also I would urge you, ladies, be mindful of that immoral man and be careful of flattery. I sometimes go to country music for advice. It oftentimes tells me what not to do. Sometimes there's some words of truth in country. Carrie Underwood, she wrote a song called Cowboy Casanova. Ladies, avoid the cowboy Casanovas out there. You know what she said? She said, you better take it from me. That boy is like a disease. He's like a curse. He's like a drug. You get addicted to his love. He's a good time cowboy Casanova, leaning up against the record machine. He looks like a cool drink of water, but he's candy-coated misery. He's a devil in disguise, a snake with blue eyes, and he only comes out at night. He gives you feelings you don't want to fight. You better run for your life. Don't even look in his eyes. He'll tell you nothing but lies. Ladies, avoid the cowboy Casanovas out there. They're up to no good. Men, avoid the adulterous woman. They're up to no good. Watch out and remember to rejoice in the spouse of your youth. Intimacy is designed for the marriage bed only. Please keep that in mind. A lot of benefits to marriage, and there's many, many more. Just wanted to cover these main three. But what else does the Bible tell us about marriage? What else does Proverbs tell us about specifically? There's just a few other things I want to mention. First is that for those of you, and there's many of you who are single and young, and many of you who are single, for those of you wanting to get married, you have that desire to get married, be careful who you marry. Choose wisely. Proverbs 31:10 tells us, an excellent wife who can find? She's worth far more, or she's far more precious than jewels. They're hard to find. Godly men out there are hard to find, ladies. Godly women out there are hard to find, men. So be that godly person. Work on yourself first. Ask the Lord who he has called you to be and ask him to help shape you into what he wants you to be and who he wants you to be and what he wants you to do. But as you're looking for a future spouse, there's a couple things that the Bible instructs us to do. First, you look for a spouse who fears the Lord, who fears Jesus. Proverbs 31:30, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. What is this talking about? Our looks go. I mean, I'm telling you, I used to have a six-pack and a head full of hair. I ain't got that anymore. Looks go, right? Charm can even go at times. You kind of lose your luster sometimes, right? But a woman or a man who fears the Lord is to be thanked and to be praised by the Lord, right? So you're looking for a person who is fearing the Lord. Looks come and go, they can be deceiving. But look at the inward as well as the outward, right? You look at the inward of the person. And don't just be attracted by looks, be attracted by character. Also, are they growing in godly wisdom? Are they fearing the Lord and are they growing in godly wisdom? Chapter 8 of Proverbs, it's written like personification where wisdom is speaking. And in verse 11 it says, wisdom is better than jewels and all that you have that you may desire cannot compare with wisdom. Compare with her. Verse 35, for whoever finds me, wisdom says, finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. Again, you need to look for somebody who is growing in their faith. You don't need to settle, okay? I know a lot of people who jump into relationships because they just want to get married. Don't do that. Take your time. And don't look for perfection. There's a balance here. And a lot of people are looking for Jesus. You're not going to find Jesus. Newsflash, we all have issues. As you're looking for someone, though, you look for someone who has potential and they're beginning to rise to that potential. Don't expect them to be a 60-year-old mature person in faith if they're 25, right? But see the potential in them and see if they are rising to that potential. Then that's the person you marry. You look for people who are growing in wisdom. They may not already have it all, and that's okay. None of us have it all, but they're growing and they're seeking it. They're not perfect. Thirdly, avoid the quarrelsome woman and the man of wrath. Several weeks ago, I talked about the topic of anger. And 5 times in Proverbs, it warns of the quarrelsome wife. Several times, it warns of the man of wrath. So as you're looking for a spouse, men, you look for ladies that don't complain, that don't bicker at their moms, that aren't bad-talking their friends, that aren't critical. Because even though they may not be critical of you, they will one day. So watch out for that. Men, watch out for that. Women, watch out for those men who have short fuses. You might be riding in the car with a friend or a guy you're dating, and next thing you know, he's flipping somebody off. That's a bad sign. You might be at a football game and they're yelling, vulgarity, bad sign. You might see a guy when he's angry and he hits a wall. Bad sign. Run away. There's a lot of men who struggle with anger, and that anger might be taken out on you. Run. So be very, very careful as you're dating and as you're looking for a spouse, and avoid the quarrelsome woman and the man of wrath. What else does Proverbs say? Work on your friendship. Work on your friendship. Last week you heard a great sermon from Matthew on friendship. Go back to Proverbs 18, verse 22. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Just 2 verses later, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Although verse 22 is really designed for friends, you just look 2 verses later and you see the context of marriage. That's interesting. When you marry, you're marrying your friend. You're marrying your friend. The book of Song of Songs, it sees two young people who are about to get married, and that's what the book is all about. And you can see their friendship growing immensely. In fact, at the end of Song of Songs, chapter 5, it says, "This is my beloved and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem." They're describing each other as friend. Remember when you married each other, for those of you married, you gave those vows for rich or for poor, in sickness and in health. You're marrying a friend. It's not always going to be hard. It's not always going to be fun, marriage. It's going to be hard, but you're going to be there for your friend. The essence of marriage, one author said, is friendship. Another author said, happy marriages are based on deep friendships. If you want a happy marriage, invest in your friend. Remember those 3 ways that you relate to one another. How are you doing in those 3 ways and relating to your friend? Your friend. Date your friend, pursue your friend, get to know your friend. If your friend looks like a stranger, or your spouse looks like a stranger, that's a problem. Remember, you've married your friend who's got your back, not your enemy. You're a team. Don't let dates be such a surprise. I read an example of a man who decided to show his wife how much he loved and cared for her. And before he left work, he showered at work. He put on some nice clothes. He put on some cologne. He went and got a bouquet of flowers. And then he goes to the home. He's all excited to give his wife some flowers and then maybe take her on a date. And he knocks on the door to surprise her. She opens the door and she says, "Oh no." And he said, "What? I'm holding flowers. I smell good. What's going on?" And she goes, "Man, I had a hard day. You know, John, our boy, he had a fever all day. I've been caring for him." And then she said, "And then your mother called and she's going to come and stay with us for 2 weeks." And then she said, "And then the washer and dryer broke." And she goes, "And now you're drunk." It was a shock to her that he showed up with flowers. She thought he was drunk. He wasn't. Yeah, don't be that guy, right? I mean, it's easy in marriage to just get stuck in a rut. It happens to us. It happens to all of us. We get stuck in a rut. We just go about our routines. And sometimes routine is good, right? Routine is good. But man, don't just be a glorified roommate. Don't be a stranger to your spouse. They're your best friend. Get to know them. Invest in them. Date them. Woo them. Listen to them. Share your struggles, your heart, your desires. Invest in your friend. The third and final thing I would say, and really the most important, is to turn your key and to die to self. What do I mean by turning your key? You may have seen these military thrillers, these movies, dramatic military movie where there's 2 soldiers, they're in a deep secret bunker, and they're waiting for the order to launch the missile. And in order to launch the missile, they both have their hands on a key and they both have to turn it at the same time for that missile to be launched. Again, for those of you married in the room, you got to turn your key. And I do a lot of counseling with couples and premarital, all that stuff. And when I counsel couples, say that 10 times. When I counsel couples, you know what normally happens? It's the blame game. Well, I'm waiting on them. I'm waiting. It's their fault. They're just set in their ways, or they're not listening, or they're not doing this. And both of them just bicker and they complain, and I'm just like, okay, time out. All right, we've just spent 30 minutes of you guys just yelling at each other. Time out. Why don't we do this? Each of you explain what you could do better. And why don't you also explain how you have wronged the other person? And they're just like, really? I'm like, yes. That's how we're going to improve here. You have to turn your key. Both of you have to turn the key in order for the missile to be launched. For you to have a thriving marriage, you have to turn that key. You can't wait on the other person to turn it. You both have to do it. You both have to do it. And that's what it means to die to self. Die to self. It's called the paradox principle in Scripture. The paradox principle is we die to ourselves in order to truly live. We die to ourselves in order to truly live. There was one person who said that marriage is when you agree to spend the rest of your life sleeping in a room that's too warm beside someone who's sleeping in a room that's too cold. What do I mean by that? Well, you know what I mean. One of you, probably the wife, gets easily cold. The other, probably the man, gets easily warm, easily hot. What do? You remember the paradox principle. You die to self. So if you're easily hot, then you say, you know what? I'm not going to turn it down so cold to where the other person's freezing. If you're easily cold, you might get yourself a blanket. You compromise. You meet in the middle. You sacrifice. You die to self. You don't think about your needs. You think about the other. That's what Scripture calls us to do. That's what the Lord calls us to do. And if you think about it, just being a Christian, we're to follow the paradox principle. What did Jesus say in Luke? He said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What is that saying here? It's countercultural, isn't it? Our world is saying, just get what you want. It's about your happiness. It's about one-upping the other person. It's about stepping on the other person to get what you need and what you want. That's not what Jesus is saying. He's saying, die to self, meaning you give yourself to the other, especially in the marriage context. You die to self. You follow that paradox principle. You turn the key instead of waiting on the other person to turn it. Great principles from Scripture. And when you think about your marriage, ponder these things and reflect on these things. Let's pray.